Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjanaya Jamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashoda Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari John Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravijacharya Asturu Shishimat His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravijacharya Asturu Shishimat His Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Swami Goswami Prabhupada Ki Anantikoti Vaishnavrind Ki Nam Acharya Salidas Thakur Ki प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिव सरि गौर भक्तवृंद की श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की वृंदावन नवदीप धाम की गंगा माय जमुना माय की भक्ति देवी तुलसी देवी की श्याम अवैत भक्तवृंद की निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 20, Text number 8. Ya evam santam atmanam atmastam veda purusha na jayate prakriti stopi tad gunai samaya stita ya evam santam atmanam atmastam veda purusha na jayate prakriti stopi tad gunai samaya stita ya evam santam atmanam atmastam veda purusha na jayate prakriti stopi tad gunai samaya stita ya evam santam atmanam atmastam veda purusha na jayate prakriti stopi tad gunaya samaya stita. Ya evam santam atmanam atmastam veda purusha na jayate prakriti stopi tad gunaya samaya stita. So we'll do the word for word. Ya, anyone who, anyone who. Evam, thus. Santam, existing. Atmanam, the individual. Atma, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Paramatma. Atmastam, situated within his body. Veda, knows. Purusha, person. Na, never. Ajayate, is affected. Prakriti, in material nature. Sta, situated. Api, although. Tadgunai, by the material modes of nature. Sa, such a person. Mai, in me. Sthita, situated. So the translation: although within the material nature, one who is thus situated in full knowledge of Paramatma and Atma is never affected by the modes of material nature, for he is always situated in my transcendental, loving service. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears in the material world, He is not affected by the modes of material nature. Similarly, those who are always connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even though they be within the material body or the material world, are never affected by the material qualities. That is explained very nicely in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, text 26. Mamchayo avibhyacharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samitye tan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who is unflinching engaged in devotional service of the Lord surpasses the material qualities and attains the Brahman realization. In this connection, Srila Rupa Goswami says that if a person is always engaged in the service of the Lord with his body, words and mind, he is to be considered liberated, although living in the material world. Translation again. Although within the material nature, one who is thus situated in full knowledge of the Paramatma and Atma is never affected by the modes of material nature, for he is always situated in my transcendental loving service. So, we've been continuing our discussion on Prithu Maharaj. It's very, very interesting. The purports, and this purport is very short, and there are important points in the purport itself. The verse itself, although within the material nature, one who is situated in full knowledge of Paramatma and Atma is never affected by the modes of material nature, for he is always situated in my transcendent loving service. So one must have full knowledge. And in the purport, Prabhupada writes, again he quotes the verse from the Bhagavad Gita, that one transcends the modes of material nature and comes to the spiritual platform. And then and in conclusion to the purport, Prabhupada quotes Rupa Goswami. He says that if a person is always engaged in the service of the Lord with body, minds and word, he is considered to be liberated, although living in the material world. So, in the Bhagavad Gita, the verse that was quoted, the verse after that, where Lord Krishna speaks that I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, is the constitutional position of eternal happiness. So, one of our acharyas, Sridhar Swami, he comments that Krishna is like the concentrated form of Brahman. Because our understanding of Brahman is that the effulgence that is emanating from the body of the Lord, the effulgence, that's the Brahman. Just like as the sun is the intensified form of light. The sun is the intensified. So although Krishna and Brahman is non-different, and Krishna is the support of the Brahman, so the completeness of Brahman is Krishna, the effulgence. But there are differences. And another Acharya, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he comments that because everything is dependent on me, means everything is dependent on Krishna, if one worships me with a desire for the impersonal Brahman or merging, he will merge into the Brahman nature and he will attain the Brahman. But we can understand that after some while that you're going to fall down from there. Because the soul, if it enters the light, it will be inactive. The soul is always active. The spirit soul is always active. but then there's no activity, he's not serving anybody. So he falls down. But in some cases, the soul from that point can go back to Godhead. It's there in the 4th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam also, that one can go back home, back to Godhead. But when you read the verses in the Gita, you'll find that sometimes you don't know whether it's Brahman or Mayavadis. It's like a lot of confusion, But Prabhupada, states in his purports, he clarifies, just like Krishna says, I am the taste of water. And then he says, I am the sun, the moon, the syllable Om. Om. So when you hear of Om, Prabhupada writes that's like the impersonalists. They don't like calling upon the name of the Lord, so they say Om. You see, some people say Om. And some people say Hari Om. Hari Om. So the impersonals are scared of calling out the name of the Lord, so they say Om. And I remember reading in the Lilamrita some while back that one person said, Prabhupada, that was an Indian person, he said, I chant Om. And then Prabhupada said, you must chant Om Krishna. He put Krishna there. But when you read the Chaitanya Charitamrita later, you'd find that Om is also the personal form of the Lord. I gave a talk previously on it, so we won't speak about it now. But there's personalists and there's impersonalists. And just like Prabhupada writes in one of the verses in the purport, he says, practically speaking, there is no conflict between personalism and impersonalism. One who knows God knows the impersonal conception and personal conception simultaneously, present in everything, and then there is no contradiction. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya established the some prime principles, Achintya Abhed and Abhed Tattva, simultaneously oneness and difference. So like this Om is always, it's sound. And before every Vedic hymn, you find that the letters OM, Om. But the Lord is one. Now you may wonder, why is Lord Vishnu, who brought Indra, and in the presence of Prithu Maharaj, is speaking this philosophy. And Prithu Maharaj is a liberated person from what we understand, because he is a Shakshta-based avatar. But yes, it's for us to also follow. For the common man, for the people of Kali Yuga. That's one understanding. The other understanding, which I mentioned a few days ago when I gave a class on Tuesday, that because Prithu Maharaj was the king and he had to follow prescribed duties, that's another reason. When he's following prescribed duties to teach the common people, because why I was just wondering why he wanted to do 100 sacrifices. Why 100 sacrifices? There was no need for him to do that. But just we can understand that people follow this in the kingdom, just like we're all following different things. And even at that time, people were doing different things. So to teach the common people. But the absolute truth, according to the Bhagavatam, Vadanti Tattva Vedas, Tadvadya Jnanam Advayam, Brahmetmi Paramatmedi Bhagavan iti sabhadyate. So learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. And here in the verse and the purport, it's talking about this point, about the super soul, the Paramatma. So this non-dual substance, just like when somebody want to merge into the Brahman effulgence, we will have this tendency to say, hey, you're doing the wrong thing as a devotee. But don't do that, because that is their desire, and that's partial realization of Godhead. Then you have Paramatma, which is the next realization of Godhead, and then the Bhagavan. So just like you see the sun in the morning, and you see the sunshine, right? It's coming into the room. So one feature is the sunshine. Another feature is the sun disk. And another feature is the sun planet. So these three features are compared to the sunshine, the sun disk, and the sun planet. The sunshine is Brahman. The sun disk is Paramatma. And the sun planet is the Bhagavan feature. So there are different features. So there's so much to speak on this subject matter, on the Paramatma. And the Bhagavad Gita, there's so many verses. Just like I was giving a class at Reservoir Hills the other day, and one devotee, his name was Paramatma. So Paramatma was asking me, how many Paramatmas are there? I said, only one in the room, yeah? One Paramatma. But yes, there's one, but it appears to be divided. So the one Paramatma expands into every living being. They appear to be divided. And the example Prabhupada gives, just like there may be many buckets of water, and the sun is reflected in each bucket. So you'll say, hey, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 suns. But there's only one. So it expands himself into each person. That's the Paramatma. But to come to this understanding, you have to transcend, as the verse says, you have to transcend the modes of material nature. And you must have knowledge in a mode of goodness. But still, in a mode of goodness is not the best, because you're still under the modes of nature. Just like somebody in the mode of goodness normally become proud by knowledge. And when they become proud by knowledge, that becomes an obstacle for them to transcend knowledge. Get it? To come to that next level of the pure stage. So Prabhupada, in one purport, he stresses the development of the mode of goodness. He says, since the present civilization is not very congenial to living entities, Krishna consciousness is recommended. Through Krishna consciousness, society will develop in the mode of goodness. And when the mode of goodness is developed, people will see things as they are. In the mode of ignorance, people are just like animals and cannot see things clearly. So in ignorance, people don't see things very clearly. But in the mode of goodness, you see things more clearly. But as I said, it's an obstacle. You see Radha Radhanath ki. It's an obstacle. When you're proud of your knowledge. And another feature of the mode of goodness is that you're very happy. And then when you become very happy, that also becomes an obstacle. And the obstacle is that you're very happy, you become content. I don't have to go anywhere else from this point. That's how it is. It's quite interesting. So in the mode of passion, what becomes greedy and their hankering for sense enjoyment has no limit. So, the Paramatma feature. So in everybody there's the Paramatma feature. And once there was a discussion between Gagamuni and Prabhupada, about this point. And, Gagamuni is saying, but we are in Krishna consciousness. We aren't interested in the Paramatma, are we? He's asking Prabhupada. And Prabhupada says, no, we have no interest because we're directly meditating on Krishna. So the Paramatma is a partial manifestation, as I was saying. So then Prabhupada says, like if you got $1 million, then $10 is already done, is in that $1 million. You also have $10. So like the Paramatma realization is in one sense at a lower level. And we don't give so much concentration on the Paramatma. We just concentrate on Krishna. And he quoted that verse, Yoginam api sharvesham. You know this verse? This is the 6th chapter, text 47. It's the last verse. And when one hears properly, and if he hears, Krishna consciousness, katha, then Krishna is within your heart. So Krishna, he tries to help you from within and from without. That means the spiritual master. So both are helping. So they both are in sync. The spiritual master and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It just reminds me of a point that whilst I was speaking this, that once there was a conversation between a reporter and Prabhupada, and Prabhupada is saying, or the question was raised, do you get information from the Paramatma within? And Prabhupada said, no, from God directly. From Bhagavan directly, from Krishna directly. They get that inspiration, the message, or he gets it from God directly and not from the Paramatma feature. But one of the disciples were thinking that Prabhupada didn't understand the question. And Prabhupada and the devotee is trying to explain. But Prabhupada said, no, it's from Krishna directly. So somebody who is very advanced, he gets that message from the Bhagavan feature of God. Somebody in the category of the Acharyas and Prabhupada. Yes. So from within. And as I said, he's sending his representative, the spiritual master, because he wants all of us to get out of this material world. He wants us to surrender. Sarva dharman parityaja mam ekam sharanam vraja. And I was thinking, I learned more from listening to the devotees than reading. Because when in the early days, Partha Maharaj would speak, like the morning classes, and Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj, and we learned so much. All these verses we learned from them. They were just telling it. Partha Maharaj quoted it must be 1,000,000 times by now. Keep quoting this verse. He must quote this verse. So the spiritual master canvasses, on behalf of the Lord. People are suffering. Also in the Gita, it is never said, Shri Paramatma Uvacha. Is it said like that? Or Brahman Uvacha. Is it said like that? No, it's not said like that. Because in the Gita it's explained, that everything, everything that is coming from Krishna. So where's the question of impersonalism? Because Krishna, Bhagavan, is speaking Bhagavad Gita. And he clearly says, Bhagavan, aham sarvasya prabhavo. Everything emanates, everything comes from Krishna. So there's no real question of impersonalism. And then we'll think, so what happens to the Paramatma after we leave this world? It travels with us throughout our journey, but when you go back to the spiritual world, it's not with you. It's not with you. And Prabhupada gave a very nice example of this. And he said, just like, you have these fairs, like you have Chatsworth Fair, ABH Fair here. So they put all these marquees and all this, and there's various people responsible for various things. Then, somebody supervises this. And then after the fair, what happened? It's gone. And the way he put it, and I'd like to read it, if the citizens of a state assemble in a fair to enjoy for a short period, the government deputies a special officer to supervise it. Such an officer is invested with all governmental power and therefore is identical with the government. But when the fair is over, there is no need for such an officer. Prabhupada is a genius. I remember this point that I read long time ago, and this morning when Madhurya told I have to give the class, which was, I never thought of it. I thought we were going to escape it. But then I thought of this thing. I remember the fair, and I Googled it, I checked it out. And then yes, so he says, he's identical with the government. When the fair is over, there is no need for such an officer, and he returns home. Prabhupada was such a genius. The way he puts it. He's such a genius. The Paramatma is compared to such an officer. This is quite amazing. That's what's in the Adhirila. So one has to get knowledge, and that's in the verse itself, and Prabhupada stresses that point. So we have to get knowledge. Why do we have to get knowledge? Because we want to transcend the modes of material nature. We want to go back to the spiritual world. And Baladev Vidyabhusan, he comments, he says that the way to get knowledge, and we have to hear this very carefully, the way to get knowledge is by worshipping the feet of the spiritual master. That's the way to get knowledge. And it's like you thinking, we must sit down and hear. Yes, but by worshipping the feet of the spiritual master, that's the way you will get knowledge. Just like sometimes when we're having Guru Puja, people will be taking out photographs here. They're videoing and taking out photographs. Or sometimes the pujaris have dressed the deities. They're so attracted to the deities that they forget the Guru Puja. So that's not what it is. You see all the devotees like Swarup and all, they just go straight there back to once they offer their obeisances, they're going to Prabhupada. That's what you need to do. So everybody should be worshipping the founder Acharya. It's very important for us to transcend the modes of material nature. And what the Guru does, because what he does, because we are caught up with the modes. It's like, we're bound by some glue. And then he shatters that glue that binds us to this material world. And the disciple is thinking, I'm my Guru's servant, and by fixing his order, his life and soul frees him from Maya. So we are always suffering. We are practitioners, we are suffering in this material world. We are sadhakas. But whether you are a sadhaka, whether you're just practicing, or whether you're a perfect devotee, we must still follow the processes so that we can attain the higher stages of consciousness. And we should never ever give up devotional service or bhakti. So there in the Bhagavad Gita, this verse, Yomam pasyati sarvatra, sarvam cha mai pasyati, tasyaham na pranasyami, sa cha me na pranasyati. So for one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I'm never lost to him. And nor is he ever lost to me. So this verse is talking about, for a devotee, when he reads this verse, he's thinking of like the cowherd girls. He's thinking of how the gopis are looking for Krishna. That's how a devotee is seeing it. And this is seeing it in like Madhurya Leela, on the highest level. But Prabhupada says, a person in Krishna consciousness certainly sees Lord Krishna everywhere, and he sees everything in Krishna. Such a person may appear to see all separate manifestations of material nature, but each and every instance he is conscious of Krishna, knowing that everything is a manifestation of Krishna's energy. And Krishna consciousness is the development of love of Krishna, a position transcendental even to material liberation. And then the devotee becomes, in that purport, Srila Prabhupada, the devotee becomes like in oneness. Because there's an intimate relationship exists between the devotee and the Lord. But when one is reading this verse, like somebody else who's performing Ashtanga Yoga or Dhyana Yoga, they will read it and concentrate on the Paramatma. So an intimate relation, and then the Prabhupada quotes in that purport, Premanjana Churiti Bhakti Vilochanena, Santa Sadve Hidayo Se Vilokayanti, Yam Shama Sundram Achincha Guna Swarupam, Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. So, you can see Krishna when your eyes is tinged with the pulp of love, with the salve of love. He sees that Shyam Sundar form. Although Prabhupada is in that 6th chapter, is quoting that in the purport. But then he takes it further. He says, in the case of a yogi who sees the Lord as Paramatma within the heart, the same applies. Such a yogi turns into a pure devotee and cannot bear to live for a moment without seeing the Lord within himself. But the Paramatma is merely permitting and overseeing, but he directs the devotee who sees the Lord within the heart. If he's fortunate, he's guided to devotees who's following Bhakti Yoga. He's directed. And as we were saying that, one can be on the in the material world. In the purport, it's very nicely put here. I just want to read that. Text 8. Doesn't it read that? Yeah. When the Supreme Lord appears in this material world, he is not affected by the modes of material nature. Similarly, those who are connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even though they within the material body or the material world, are not affected by the material qualities. So a devotee can be in the world, but not affected by what's going on in the surrounding in this world. He's in the spiritual realm. He's always thinking, 24 hours a day he's chanting, he's remembering the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. He's thinking about Vrindavan. And it reminds me of the verse that is given in the Nectar of Instruction, text 8. The essence of all advice is that one should utilize his full time, 24 hours a day, nicely chanting and remembering the Lord's divine name, transcendental form, qualities, and eternal pastimes, thereby gradually engaging one's tongue and mind. In this way, one should reside in Vraja, Goloko Vrindavan Dham, and serve Krishna under the guidance of devotees. One should follow in the footsteps of the Lord's beloved devotees who are deeply attached to devotional service. And the next verse was Krishnam Smaranam Janam Chasya Prestam Nija Samihitam Tat Tat Kata Tratas Chaso Kuryad Vasam Vraja Sada. A devotee should always reside in the transcendental realm of Vraja and always engage in Krishnam Smaranam Janam Chasya Prestam, the remembrance of Sri Krishna and his beloved associates. By following in the footsteps of such associates and by entering under their eternal guidance, one can acquire an intense desire to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So these two verses actually come from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, from the nectar of devotion. It shows how that if somebody is absorbed 24 hours, and if he's following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas, then he's not living in this world. He's in the spiritual world. And there's an example like that, of like Raghunath Das Goswami. He was in this world and he's Rati Manjari. He's like an exalted devotee in the pastimes of Krishna. And once he was meant to give some lecture, some katha, and the devotees went to get him, but he wouldn't come out because he was sick. And he would take just a cup of buttermilk, just 1 cup of buttermilk every day. That was his prasadam. And then but he was feeling sick that day. So the devotees felt that they could call a Kaviraj. A Kaviraj is a Ayurvedic doctor, and the doctor had to come and, examine him. And when the doctor examined him, he said, he's suffering from eating too much. So the people thought, but this person, he just take 1 cup of butter, he couldn't be eating so much. But then, he said, well, yesterday there was a big feast in the spiritual world, and I had too much of Radharani's preparation, the sweet rice, so I got a stomach problem. His Kaviraj is right. So in this world, you have this material body. In that world, you have your spiritual body. So a person can live in this world and be in that world. So it's very inspiring, and I always like Raghunath Das Goswami is reading about him, and it's very interesting. So inspiration, we're all looking for inspiration, and we're discussing a little bit about inspiration. And in the Madhya Leela, chapter 11, text 117, Yanre kripa kari karena hidaya prerana Krishna rasya haye chade veda loka dharma. So the translation is, the man to whom the Lord shows his mercy by inspiring him within the heart takes shelter only of Lord Krishna and abandons all Vedic and social customs. And in the fifth text of this chapter, Prabhupada quotes the verse from the Bhagavad Gita where one must transcend all these Vedic ritual, and must take shelter of Lord Krishna. So this inspiration, we get this inspiration, and sometimes we don't know whether it's inspiration or it's coming from our mind. Isn't it? Just like somebody might go and start dressing the deity in, differently. Sometimes we hear, they start speculating. It's best to do it as, Prabhupada did it and showed the devotees. But there is, even if there's some sort of like, you're inspired to do something, maybe then you should check it out with the authorities, before you do it. Like Prabhupada was saying, the one of the devotees, Shyam Sundar, sometimes we're acting according to our whims. And so if there's a mistake, then that means I'm responsible for that. So if somebody points it out to you, remember that you are responsible. But then Shyam Sundar is saying, no, but sometimes they call it, inspiration. You've been inspired. So they create something beautiful. Maybe dressing the deity or whatever. So what is that inspiration? Shyam Sundar Prabhu is kind of, wanting Prabhupada to comment on inspiration. That, Prabhupada said, that inspiration means you created an idea that I want to do like that. And because you are persistent to act, God helps you. You're persistent to act. All right, you act. That is inspiration. But you are responsible. So you are persistent. I must have it. All right, do it. That is inspiration. See, we should not do it unless it is desired by God, by Krishna. We should not act even if we have some idea. And that is bhakti. You get it? So if you're not sure, you have to check it out. And when you check it out with the mature devotees, that is anya bilasita sunyam jnana karma anavritam anukulena krishna anushilanam bhakti rutama. That is favorable devotional service. That's how it becomes favorable. So bhakti, it's sometimes it's a long way for us to go, because we may not, we just depend on our inspiration at times, and you may be inspired, from a mental perspective, from your mind. And the mind is not pure. And even when you do wrong things, that's also sanctioned by Krishna. That's the Paramatma. That's the Paramatma that is sanctioning the wrong that one is doing. Like the body, the senses, there's 5 factors. The body, the mind, the senses, the various activities or performances, and finally the super soul sanctions. So one has to be very, very clear about it. So that what is inspiration and what is mental concoction. One has to be very clear with that. So just like, sometimes you may, like when somebody tells you, like you may meet a materialist and he tells you something. But you have to consider it, whether you must act on such a thing. For example, like, Prabhupada was told by a doctor, like a drunk person, you must walk. So that inspiration came from the drunk person. But because the Lord maybe felt it necessary to speak through that person. But remember, it's the same super soul in that person's heart. Get it? And it's the same super soul. And Prabhupada took that seriously. So you will think, Prabhupada listening to a drunkard. But he just took it seriously. It could be looked in many ways, like that the person is engaging in devotional service. He's getting him that opportunity to engage in devotional service. It's not that Prabhupada is not conscious about things, but it's dealing with the body, and the body is material. It's not spiritual, it's material. So when we're sick, we have to go to a doctor, and he deals with the material areas or material aspects of life. And the other point I was going to make was that once in Juhu, Srila Prabhupada was, we were dealing with lots of people, and the people were cheating, and there was Mr. Nair, they had a lawyer, Prabhupada had a lawyer, an attorney, but the attorney was on the opposition side. It was on the other side. And somehow, the man was anyway cheating, and then Prabhupada didn't know that this person, the lawyer, was on that side. And then finally, then he said, actually Krishna didn't want me to know. So he was always directed directly by Krishna. And Krishna didn't want me to know. So these verses, we're reading, we have to look at it very carefully and understand the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, and we have to study the purports, the Srimad Bhagavatam. I'll read the verse again. Although within the material nature, one who is thus situated in full knowledge of the Paramatma and Atma is never affected by the modes of material nature, for he is always situated in my transcendental loving service. It's 8:29. So we'll stop here. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments? Yes. Oh, like that. Within this world, you see, I read, and I couldn't verify it because I didn't have the time to do it. But I read in the I think it's the Madhurya Kadambini. It's probably in that book, or maybe it's maybe one of the books, one of the Acharya's books, that for somebody who's elevated and advanced, that feature is that Paramatma feature is transformed. That's how it is. But I have to double check that. I normally don't say something, but I thought about that, but I didn't say it. But you raised it, but I'll go check it out. So yes, it's transformed into that feature. Yeah. But if somebody like Prabhupada is in touch with the Bhagavan feature, then and I was explaining the point, like the $10 is in the $100 million. So it's like, but he's directed by the Bhagavan feature. So it's like that. Yeah. Overseer. Yeah. 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 It's like, like I remember I was reading also one time, one devotee wanted to be initiated, but somehow his name was not called. So for being initiated, then he walked at a distance, and then after walking for quite a while, he thought, let me go back. So he started walking back. And he walked all the way back to the temple room, and Prabhupada said, I'll take one more. And got him initiated. That makes it's quite something. It reminds me of one of my relatives, and I was thinking about him this morning very much when I was chanting, that they were in bad habits, and they would go buy some drugs, like drugs, daka. So the merchant, they call these people merchants, that merchant. I know all that language, but anyway, the merchant, he would ask the money first. So then they said, we'll pay you later. So the person said, no, I need the money first. Then I'll give you the drugs. So what they did, they took a walk. They took a long walk, and then they came back after a while, said, okay, now man, we go, give it to us now. So the person just gave the drugs. But they didn't have the money. So the man, he thought, that super soul within made him forget now, that he thought these people got the money. But they didn't have the money, and then they started walking again. So it works like that. It's just amazing how everything is controlled by the super soul within. He sanctions everything. Every activity he sanctions from within. He's sanctioning that. And we don't see that. We see, no, it's our own endeavor. But we have our desire, but the final sanction is the super soul, whether wrong or right. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki. Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Hey, this is so beautiful. You can talk for hours. And I got more things to say.